On this one, we're trying to find the sine. Where's the sine of x equal to 0.4 on the interval 0 to 2 pi? And there's two solutions they're telling us. So how do we go about this? Let me bring it down here. The sine of x is 0.4. Well, 0.4, we must use a calculator, right? Because that's not on the unit circle. Let's go look at the notes. I have notes I'm sending you for this. Let's take a look. So first off, do we have only one type of trig function? Yeah, we do. Is it first power, right? We just have sine. Is it first power only? Yeah, it's just first power. We'll get it alone. Well, I think it already is alone if I remember right. Take it to the unit circle and get two answers. If the value is not on the unit circle, then see number 3 below. So we got to go down to number 3. When we must use our calculator, y value is not on the unit circle, right? The 0.4 is not on the unit circle. So what do? After getting sine, cosine, or tangent alone, then take the inverse sine, cosine, or tangent of both sides, but before hitting inverse on the calculator, change the number on the other side to be positive, even if it was negative at first. Okay, that's going to be a whole process. Let's go take a look. So we're going to do inverse of both sides, and that makes sense, right? Sine inverse, sine, because we're trying to cancel because we want to solve for x. I hope that seems natural to you. We do that a ton in math. Let me give you an example. If you have x squared equals 9, what do? You root both sides because that cancels and just makes x. Why? It's because a root and a square are inverse functions of each other. That's what they are. Same thing like a log and an exponential. Those are opposites. So when you have one, you do the other, and they cancel each other out. Well, that's what sine and sine inverse are. They're inverse functions, obviously. That's the very name of it, sine inverse. And so when you have sine and you want to get rid of it because you're trying to solve for x, right? So we're trying to find is solve for x. So get rid of the sine with the sine inverse on both sides. So that makes sense. So sine inverse of 0.4. Now, this already was positive. They made a big deal, the notes made a big deal, that's me actually making a big deal out of that being positive, making it positive if it's not already positive. Well, ours is already positive, so I won't sweat those details right now. I'm just going to hit sine inverse of 0.4. Now, make sure you're in radian mode on your calculator. It's always radian mode. So I'm in radian mode. I'm going to hit sine inverse, 0.4. I'm getting x equals 0.4115. So there we go. So that's x. Now, what do we do with that answer? Well, we're not done yet. That's not the whole story. Obviously, there's supposed to be two answers. So let's go back. So after getting it, change the number to positive, even if it was negative. Take the inverse sign. We did. B, realize now that your answer is an angle in the first quadrant because we changed the right side number to be positive. All trig functions are positive in the first. Okay, so that answer is a first quadrant answer that we have. We need to find the two quadrants where our answers will be using all students take calculus, the quadrants where the various trig functions are positive. Our two answers will be found in the two quadrants where our trig function has the correct original sign, positive or negative. Okay, let me see if I can make sense out of that for you. So we're trying to solve this problem. Let me go over here, do a little axis system, where the sign is positive, right? So let's remember all students take calculus. That's how we know which trig functions are positive in which quadrants. We want to know, it said two quadrants. What are the two quadrants in which sine is positive? Well, they're all positive in the first quadrant, and then sine is positive here. So we're talking about the first and the second quadrants where sine is positive. So we should have an answer in the first quadrant where sine is positive 0.4, and we should also have an answer in the second quadrant where sine is positive 0.4. This is our first quadrant answer. As the note said, realize that that answer you got is your first quadrant answer, but you need another one. You also need the other correct quadrant. So in our case, that's the second quadrant. So I need an answer in the second quadrant. So let me draw my angle here. This angle is my 0.4115 in radians. And what the notes are going to explain to us is that the other answer is the exact same angle, meaning same angle from here, 0.4115, off the x-axis. Remember, this is the x-axis. If you go the same distance, let me be really clear on this. If you go the same distance off the x-axis in any quadrant, then you're going to get the same value. So if we're 0.4115 above the x-axis in the first quadrant or the second quadrant, we're going to get the same value for sine. And it's going to be positive in both. We'd get the same value down here and here, but they would be negative, and we just want sine positive 0.4. Okay, so that's our other angle. But how do we say that angle? Well, it's 0.4115. Well, no, it's 0.4115 in the second quadrant. So how do you actually say that? Because angles are actually from zero. From here to there is the actual second quadrant answer, right? Because this is where zero starts. So how do you say that answer? Well, can you see what we're going to need to do? To go from here all the way to there is pi, and then you just back up 0.4115. The second answer is pi minus 0.4115. That's going to be our second quadrant answer. Do you see why that is? Because to get it, let me try with another marker here. You would just go all the way to pi and then back up, right? Because it's all the way to pi, and then back up the 0.4115. So that's our second quadrant answer. So we just use our calculator, hit the pi button on your calculator, and subtract 0.4115. I'm doing it. I'm getting 2.730. That's the second quadrant answer. So they want the first and the second answer. This would be 0.4115, 2.730. They want, yeah, the A is the lower one. So those are the two answers. Let's go back to the notes. I want to show you that exact setup. So this is what I'm saying. Find, our two answers will be found in the two quadrants where our original trig function. So we did in the first and second. The first one is no change. The second is pi minus the calculated value. Like we said, that was the formula. We just realized pi minus. So that's what we did. We did pi minus to get our second quadrant answer. So there's how you get the two answers.